Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to my room. In this video, I wanted to react to a comment by a person. I have not. Well, my screen is off because I'm trying to desperately win the fight against. What could it be? HSP or something like that, I guess. So I can't recall the name of the person. I apologize, but. It was a few videos ago, and this person was asking an interesting question in regards to the let's say the existential condition of the INFJ type. What this person was asking was, sure, we have our different ways of experiencing anxiety, of experiencing various fears, of experiencing stress, of experiencing negative emotions. And there's also various ways of dealing with it. But what about solitude? What about loneliness? It's a question about solitude and loneliness. It was a question that struck me straight away as worth addressing. But I didn't do that straight away because I genuinely didn't know what to answer. There is certainly, in my experience, talking with a lot of INFJs, this recurrent theme of a certain sense of loneliness or solitude. The two terms to me are not quite the same, if only for the fact that at the basic level, solitude is not necessarily something negative. It doesn't have a negative connotation. Someone may seek solitude. Someone may seek the life of a recluse. Not anything that I would recommend, but maybe that's a bit rich coming from me. Whereas you wouldn't necessarily say, it wouldn't make sense to say, oh, I enjoy loneliness. It doesn't make sense. Loneliness is not something that one enjoys. I guess you could say I like being alone from time to time, or I like solitude. But loneliness is I feel like there is, within the very concept, of loneliness, there is a form of suffering, a form of pain, something that is imposed upon the lonely person. And of course, it's a sense of loneliness that can very much occur in the middle of a crowd, even in the middle of a group of friends of which one is a member. So I think that even though the person made use of the term solitude, there's a sense in which I think that what's interesting to talk about in relation to the INFJ is loneliness, at least as much as solitude, or next to solitude. Because to some extent, if we refer to absolutely any sort of introvert, solitude is something that's going to be sought after. It's something that's going to be sought as, not as something that one likes necessarily, but something that is considered vital to the replenishing of one's resources and to just relaxing in circumstances in which one can actually relax. It's not to say that the circumstances in which one is being social are not as enjoyable, but these are not circumstances in which one can really relax, because an introvert is always kind of on the lookout, on guard. It's like, there is always a sense in which the social setting, as great and fun as it is not the default mode. It's not the natural environment for one to thrive. And so one has to spend an extra bit of energy. If that is one's constant environment, that's going to be very tiring, hence the need to decompress. And so the need for this kind of solitude or for alone time. So that's completely okay. And I think it targets any introvert, really. Now, there might still be a form of INFJ relationship with solitude that differs qualitatively or quantitatively from the other kinds, even among introverts. And then there is the loneliness, which is something else, which perhaps the sense of loneliness that is peculiar to a type like the INFJ cannot be completely compared with the type of loneliness that other types experience, and maybe the type of loneliness that other types experience is by definition particularistic and not comparable necessarily as in a, kind of a table, abstract table, to that of other types. So, given this preamble, what can be said about the INFJ solitude and the INFJ loneliness? I would say that on paper, the INFJ is not supposed to be someone, among all the different types, the INFJ is not supposed to be someone who's the most likely to seek solitude. Let's say that among the introverts, the INFJ is likely to enjoy some modicum of solitude, but as an extroverted user of feeling, as an extroverted feeling user, the need to be with others is going to be quite an important part of one's template towards well-being, because it's not just that, you see, it's not, and sometimes that bothers me, it can bother me, and I fall into that trap myself. We're all too quick to envisage this auxiliary use of extroverted feeling in the INFJ as something which is to be activated. Well, it's used more or less all the time, but it's activated at certain times to signal to an INFJ that now they need to be with others, they've spent enough time decompressing. So we easily fall into this kind of dichotomous picture where there's an opposition between the alone time and the not alone time, the solitude time and the social time, solitary versus social. And in my own videos, I speak about this often. I refer to this tug of war, as I like to call it, between the social and the solitary in the INFJ. You could maybe associate the social, maybe tentatively with the use of extroverted feeling, and then the more solitary aspect or dimension of the INFJ with the use and dominance of introverted feeling. But it is not really, in reality, as if the INFJ were constantly alternating between needing to be on its own or on their own or needing to be with others. There's a great deal of that, and I think any INFJ will face to some extent the need to organize their life in such a way as to be flexibly able to deploy the social availability if they need to be social, or to extricate themselves from that social domain without being rude to anyone, without hurting any social norm, retreat to their own quarters and enjoy being alone, with the availability of a social realm never too far, because FE does entail a need to be social. Now, of course, that's not only the case of the INFJ, it's the case of absolutely any well-functioning human being. No one really, apart from eccentrics of various sorts, and no one should spend too much time on their own. But there's something more ingrained in the INFJ constitution, the existential constitution of an INFJ type, I think. And that will give us a point of entry into the discussion of beyond the whole solitary dimension, solitude in the INFJ's life, the dimension of loneliness. Because rather than this tug of war that takes place between the social and the solitary in an INFJ's personality. I mean, it is. You could usefully describe it as a tug of war, as a sort of fight. It's not a lie. It's not false. But I would say that it's true in a low resolution sense. If you move towards a higher resolution picture of the INFJ's internal makeup and existential constitution, I think you'll notice, if you're an INFJ, that when you are alone, there's a sense in which a lot of the time when you're alone and when you kind of want to be alone, maybe not in the needs where maybe not in the moments when you need most to decompress, but in a lot of these moments when you kind of feel like you'd rather be alone still, you miss being with others. You don't really want to be with others for all the other implications that has in terms of the expenditure of energy and the effort that it would demand of you. But at the same time, being alone, although it is the preferred option, still a little bit frustrating. There's still this being drawn to wanting to spend time with others. But then maybe you've gone through phases where you've allowed yourself to always obey this internal sort of, maybe not command, something a little weaker than command, but an urge of some sort to be with others, and you've given way to it to test whether that's really what you want all the time, and you'd find yourself in situations where then you don't have the best time ever, even if it's with friends, and you wish maybe that you hadn't succumbed to that urge, and so you go back to this attempt at creating and maintaining this sense of balance. But at the very same time, this sense of balance seems to be possibly the best approach, possibly the most, indeed, balanced approach, which does not completely remove this vague sense of nostalgia or this vague sense of missing out. I wouldn't say it's a FOMO thing, a fear of missing out in the way that young people use it these days, but there is a lot of the time, even within one's preference for solitary endeavors, a wish that one were with others. And that, I think, is the origin of the INFJ sense of loneliness. At the very same time, when one spends time with others in the social realm, and when it is one's preferred choice, when it's not just been about succumbing to a spur of the moment, when it's genuine and genuinely felt need to be with others, you go with others, you go there. You're spending a night, and you're mostly glad that you are there. You don't wish that you had been staying at home, because you know internally, you just know that you needed that, and it's important to know that one needs that, because everyone needs that. And yet at the same time, just as in the same way that there is a little atom of awareness left that when you're alone, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to spend a bit of time with others, to get some sort of interaction, acknowledgement, something to nourish that FE and all these different things. When you're on your own, sorry, maybe that's your Freudian slip, but when you're with others, a social setting, with exceptions, exceptions, events during which you're really ecstatic and you're really super happy to be with others and you kind of forget yourself in this enjoyment, those are rare. Unless one tries to palliate that by drinking, which is not a sustainable practice long term. I advise against it. Just let's say there's a bit of drinking, but you're with others. There's this little corner in your mind that reminds you, I don't feel completely understood. There's still a weird disconnect somehow, and it's not easy to be with all these people all the time. I wish I could take maybe some break. In a lot of social circumstances, social contexts, you can't take the break. You're there, and you still you feel this longing for being alone, even though you know that you would really rather be with people at that time. So these are symmetrical situations in a way. One in which one knows one would rather be solitary. One is but still sort of misses being with others. And then the parallel but opposite situation in which one is with others, one would rather be with others, one is glad, and yet some part of one wishes one were alone. If I'm an INFJ, at least I can say that that's a feeling that I experience a lot. And it's not, I would say that it's not a consequence of a functional tug of war between FE and TI, or between NI and FE, or rather it's part of being an INFJ with a temperament that is captured by those functions. The feelings are not caused by the functions. They are just how the functions, how one manifests their personality, and the functions only capture a certain model, a certain way of modeling that. And what this implies is that perhaps it is part of what it is to be INFJ, to experience this dialectical longing between the with others and the with oneself. And it's not fun. It's not fun. But if you're feeling it, could be, if you're feeling it systematically enough, could be a good strong indication that you're an NIFE user that is an INFJ. Because I think that's how it manifests a lot of the time. And so this loneliness that is being talked about is the product, it's a product of a temperament. It's the alone in the crowd sense, you know, but also the in the crowd when you're alone. And it's this connected to this vision that one needs time to spend time with because it's one's home, it's one's bathing scene, it's the NI vision, and it's a comfortable place. But it is constantly being not only challenged, but also replenished and enriched and, you know, negotiated with, discussed with FE and the other functions, but let's say FE. In other words, we need time for the vision, we need to spend time with it because we care about it and because it is what is most intimate to us. But if it is not something that we can get to share with others, something's missing. But then when we try to share it with others, they don't really completely get it because of the sheer uniqueness of the vision and of NI. Okay, let me know what you think, guys. This was a first attempt at addressing loneliness in an INFJ. Hope you liked it, and I'm sure I will elaborate these views in the future when my vision becomes clearer, but these were some preliminary thoughts. Have a lovely start of the week, guys. Talk to you soon.